I don't know why I've decided to write this down now, after all these years. Maybe it's guilt, maybe nostalgia, maybe just the need to finally release the weight pressing against my chest. I'm not sure if this is a confession, an apology, or just a selfish attempt to relive something that almost destroyed me, but also made me feel more alive than I ever had before. I was 32 when it started. At that point, I had what most people would call a stable life. I had been married for 6 years to Anna, my college sweetheart. She was steady, reliable, and deeply loyal. We had an apartment in the city, both of us working steady jobs, paying off our mortgage bit by bit. Our lives were ordinary in every sense of the word. Dinners at the same restaurant every Friday, quiet weekends visiting her parents, vacations carefully planned 6 months in advance. On the surface, it was good, comfortable, predictable, but underneath, something in me was restless. I remember lying awake some nights next to Anna, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was all my life was going to be. A long line of safe choices and obligations. I told myself I loved her, and in many ways I did. But it was the kind of love that felt like wearing an old sweater, warm, familiar, and dull. Then came Claire. I met her at work. She was a new hire in our department, younger than me by 5 years, with sharp brown eyes that always seemed to be studying you, weighing your words. She wasn't classically beautiful, not the way Anna was with her soft features and gentle smile. Claire was different. There was something magnetic in the way she carried herself, confident, witty, with just a hint of danger in her laugh. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was just another colleague. But then came the late nights when we both stayed behind finishing reports. The small talk that slipped into deeper conversations. The shared cigarettes on the balcony even though I had quit years ago. There was a spark I couldn't ignore, though I told myself it was harmless. I still remember the first time she leaned just a little too close to me, her hand brushing against mine as she passed me a file. My heart jolted, and I pulled back instinctively, but the moment burned in my memory for days. It was like my body betrayed me, revealing a hunger I thought I had buried. Anna noticed changes in me before I did. She asked why I was coming home later, why I seemed distracted at dinner. I lied easily, just work stress, deadlines. The boss is breathing down my neck. She wanted to believe me, and I let her. The truth was that Claire had awakened something in me that I couldn't quiet down. I caught myself imagining her laugh when I was in bed with my wife, or replaying the way her eyes lingered a second too long. It was a game, I told myself, just harmless flirting. Everyone does it. But even then, in the quiet moments, I think I knew I was already stepping onto dangerous ground. The first time we crossed the line, it wasn't planned. We were working late again, the office nearly empty, rain pounding against the windows. I made some stupid joke about the weather, and she laughed, touching my arm lightly. When I turned to look at her, something shifted in the air. Neither of us moved for a second, but then I leaned in just slightly, and she didn't pull away. Our lips met, tentative at first, then urgent. I should have stopped. I should have pulled back, apologized, and walked away. But instead, I kissed her harder, tasting the wine she must have had at dinner, feeling her fingers curl into my shirt. That kiss lasted less than a minute, but it set everything in motion. Afterward, we pretended nothing had happened. We didn't speak of it the next day, didn't text about it, didn't even look at each other differently in front of colleagues. But the tension was unbearable, a current running beneath every casual conversation. And when it finally broke, when we found ourselves alone again, we didn't hesitate. That was the beginning of the affair. Looking back now, I wonder if I was in control of anything, or if I was simply swept along by desire, by the intoxicating thrill of having something forbidden. I lied to myself every day, telling myself I loved Anna, telling myself I could manage this double life, telling myself it was just physical, nothing more. But lies have a way of multiplying, and soon, I found myself entangled in a web I couldn't escape, caught between loyalty and longing, between the comfort of a life I had built and the dangerous fire of a love that wasn't mine to take. Affairs don't start with grand declarations or dramatic choices. They begin in small, almost invisible ways. A lingering glance, a joke shared too often, a touch that lingers longer than it should. That's how it was with Claire and me. After that first kiss, we tried to keep our distance, but it was like holding back the tide. Every interaction pulled us closer. Every word seemed loaded with something unspoken. The next time it happened, there wasn't any pretense of accident. She came into my office after everyone else had gone home. She closed the door behind her without a word. I remember my pulse racing as she sat down across from me, her leg brushing against mine under the desk. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence was heavy, filled with what we both already knew. "I can't stop thinking about you," she said finally, her voice low. It should have terrified me. It should have sent me running back to Anna, confessing everything, begging for forgiveness before it was too late. But instead, I reached for her hand. That night we crossed another line, one that couldn't be explained away with excuses. We kissed, we touched, we gave in. It wasn't just a kiss anymore. It was passion, raw and overwhelming, the kind of connection that burns and consumes. Walking home later that night, I felt both exhilarated and sick. Exhilarated because I hadn't felt that alive in years. Sick because I knew I was betraying Anna in the worst possible way. But when I lay next to her in bed, watching her breathe peacefully, I told myself a story I wanted to believe, that I could keep these two worlds separate, that I could love my wife and still chase this fire with Claire. The lie worked for a while. Weeks turned into months. We met in hotel rooms, in her apartment, sometimes even in the backseat of my car like reckless teenagers. We told ourselves it was just for now, just until we figured things out, though neither of us dared to define what that meant. But the human heart doesn't follow rules. What started as lust grew into something deeper. I found myself craving not just her body but her presence. Her voice on the phone, her laugh echoing in my head during meetings, the way she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. And with every moment I spent with Claire, I began to feel more distant from Anna. I'd come home late, smelling of hotel soap, and tell Anna I had been working overtime. She'd nod, tired but trusting. She believed me, and that blind trust cut deeper than any suspicion ever could. One evening, after another hurried encounter with Claire, I came home to find Anna waiting for me at the table. She had cooked dinner, pasta, my favorite, and had opened a bottle of wine. She looked beautiful, her hair falling softly around her face, her eyes warm and expectant. "I feel like we've been drifting lately," she said as we sat down. "I miss you." Her words hit me harder than any accusation could. She wasn't angry, she wasn't suspicious. She just missed me. And there I was, sitting across from her, full of lies and stolen touches that weren't hers. I wanted to confess in that moment. I wanted to spill everything, beg her to hate me, to scream, to do anything that would break the unbearable weight of pretending. But instead, I reached across the table, took her hand and said, "I miss you too." The guilt was unbearable. But the next day, when Claire texted me, "I can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" I went to her without hesitation. It was as if I was living two lives, split down the middle. With Anna, I was the husband, the steady partner, the man who mowed the lawn on Saturdays and visited her parents on Sundays. With Claire, I was someone else entirely. A reckless lover, passionate, free, unchained. And the more I lived in that second skin, the harder it became to go back to the first. One night, lying in bed with Claire, she asked me the question I had been dreading. "Do you love her?" I hesitated too long. Finally, I whispered, "Yes." She turned away, her body tense. "And me? Do you love me?" I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to draw a line to keep things simple. But the truth slipped out before I could stop it. "Yes, I love you too." It was the first time I admitted it, to her, to myself. And once the words were spoken, I couldn't take them back. That was the moment the affair stopped being a secret indulgence. It became something bigger, more dangerous. Because now it wasn't just about passion, it was about love. And love, unlike lust, demands choices. By the time summer arrived, my life had become a carefully constructed performance. Every day was an act. smiles at home, excuses at work, hurried rendezvous in hidden corners of the city. I told myself I could balance it all, that I could keep Anna and Claire in their separate worlds, never letting the two collide. But lies are fragile. No matter how carefully you stack them, eventually they crack. It started with little things. Anna asking why I seemed distracted at dinner, why I was guarding my phone more than usual. She wasn't confrontational by nature. Instead, she asked softly, with genuine concern, that only made the guilt worse. I found myself snapping at her for no reason, just to push her questions away. Claire, meanwhile, had begun to demand more of me. At first, she was content with stolen moments, but over time, she wanted something real. "I don't want to be your secret forever," she said one night, lying naked beside me in a hotel room. Her words pierced me. I stared at the ceiling, unsure of how to answer. She propped herself up on one elbow, her hair falling across her face. "Do you ever think about us as more than this?" she asked. The truth was that I did, constantly, but saying it out loud felt like betrayal made flesh. I muttered something about needing time, about how complicated things were. She nodded, but her eyes told me she wasn't satisfied. The pressure was mounting from both sides, and I was the weak link. I thought I could control it, but the truth was I was unraveling. One evening, Anna suggested we go away for a weekend trip together, just the two of us. She wanted to reconnect, she said, and her voice trembled just enough to break my heart. I agreed, of course. What else could I do? But that same night, Claire texted me, "I need you. Can you come?" I stared at the message for a long time, torn between obligation and desire. In the end, I went to her. Lying to Anna about where I was going felt like swallowing glass. I told her I had to work late, then drove straight to Claire's apartment. She opened the door wearing one of my shirts, her eyes bright with anticipation. And in that moment, I chose her over my wife without hesitation. But choices have consequences. The next morning, I returned home to find Anna sitting at the kitchen table, her face pale, her eyes red. My stomach dropped. "Where were you?" she asked quietly. I froze. She wasn't shouting, she wasn't accusing, just asking. And that was somehow worse. "At work," I said, too quickly. Her eyes searched mine. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "I don't believe you." That was the first time Anna let me see her doubt. It shattered me. I wanted to fall to my knees, confess everything, beg for forgiveness. But instead, I doubled down on the lie. "You have to trust me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked away, tears welling up, and I hated myself more in that moment than I ever had in my life. Meanwhile, Claire was growing restless. She started asking questions she hadn't asked before, about my marriage, about Anna, about whether I planned to leave. "Do you love her more than me?" she asked one night, her voice trembling with anger. The question cut me to the core. I tried to reassure her, tried to tell her that my feelings for her were real, that she mattered more to me than anyone. But even as I spoke, I knew the truth. I was caught between two loves, unable to let go of either. The jealousy began to show. Claire would get angry when I canceled plans to be with Anna. Anna would grow suspicious when I came home smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. I was being pulled in two directions, and I knew I couldn't keep it up forever. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Anna and I were supposed to go to dinner with friends, but I lied, claiming I had to work late. Instead, I went to Claire's apartment. We spent the evening wrapped up in each other, and for a few hours, the rest of the world didn't exist. But when I finally came home, much later than I should have, Anna was waiting. She had called my office. She had spoken to my boss. She knew I hadn't been there. The look on her face when I walked through the door will haunt me forever. A mixture of betrayal, devastation, and cold clarity. "Who is she?" Anna asked. And in that moment, the walls of my carefully built double life came crashing down. I used to imagine that if the truth ever came out, it would happen in some controlled way, that I'd sit Anna down, explain everything carefully, maybe even make her understand how it happened. But reality is never so neat. That night, when Anna looked at me with those raw, searching eyes and asked, "Who is she?" I froze. Silence can be louder than any words. My hesitation was all the answer she needed. Her face crumpled, and she turned away, covering her mouth with her hand as if to physically hold back the sobs breaking inside her. "Her name is Claire," I finally whispered. The moment the name left my lips, it felt like a death sentence. Not just for my marriage, but for the life I had built, for the man I thought I was. Anna's shoulders trembled. She didn't scream, didn't throw anything. She just asked, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, "How long?" I wanted to lie, to soften it, but there was no point anymore. "Almost a year." She turned then, and the tears streaming down her face nearly undid me. "A year? You've been lying to me every day for a year." I tried to reach for her, but she recoiled as if my touch burned. "Don't you dare," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't you dare touch me." The rest of that night is a blur of shattered words and silence. She demanded details: where, when, why. I gave her some, withheld others. What difference did it make? Each truth only cut deeper. At some point, she locked herself in the bedroom, and I sat on the couch, staring into the darkness, knowing there was no undoing what I had done. The next day, she didn't speak to me at all. She left the house without a word, and I didn't know if she was going to her parents, a lawyer, or just driving aimlessly to escape me. I wanted to call Claire, to seek comfort, but even the thought felt grotesque. Claire was part of why I was here. When Anna finally came back that evening, her eyes were swollen, her expression hardened. She didn't look like my wife anymore. She looked like a stranger. "I can't do this," she said flatly. "I can't live with someone who betrays me like this." "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words empty and desperate. "I love you." "Do you?" she snapped, her eyes blazing. "Because you told her the same thing, didn't you?" I had no defense. She was right. I had split myself in two, handing out pieces of my love like it was something infinite, when in reality all I had done was cheapen it. Over the next few days, Anna moved into the guest room. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was clipped, mechanical, about bills, groceries, logistics. The intimacy was gone, replaced by a cold civility that hurt more than shouting ever could. Meanwhile, Claire pressed for answers. "Now that she knows what happens with us?" she asked over the phone, her voice tight. I hesitated, torn between two collapsing worlds. "I don't know." "You don't know?" she repeated, furious. "I put everything on the line for you. I believed you when you said you loved me. And now you don't know?" I tried to explain the chaos, the wreckage, the way Anna's pain was swallowing me whole. But Claire didn't want explanations. She wanted promises. Promises I wasn't sure I could give. The truth was, part of me still loved Anna, or at least the version of her that had trusted me before I destroyed everything. And part of me loved Claire, or the reckless, intoxicating passion she represented. I wanted both, and in the end, that meant I was destined to lose them all. The real breaking point came a week later. Anna and I were in the kitchen, going through the motions of dinner in silence. Suddenly, she put down her fork and looked at me, her face pale but determined. "I called her," she said. My blood went cold. "What?" "I found her number. I called her." I could barely breathe. What did you say?" "That she can have you," Anna said, her voice shaking. "Because I'm done." She stood up, walked to the bedroom, and closed the door. I sat there at the table, staring at the untouched food, realizing that the life I had taken for granted was slipping through my fingers. And for the first time, I wondered if I was about to lose everything. When Anna said she had called Claire, it felt like the ground opened beneath me. I imagined the two of them on the phone, my wife's pain colliding with my lover's defiance, both women connected by the one thing they shared, me. And suddenly, I wasn't the man desired by two women. I was the man despised by both. Anna moved out 2 days later. She packed her essentials, clothes, toiletries, a few personal items, and left without fanfare. There was no screaming, no pleading, no second chances. Just the quiet sound of zippers and the final slam of the door. The apartment felt like a tomb after she was gone. Her absence was everywhere. In the unmade bed, the toothbrush still standing next to mine, the empty side of the closet. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at nothing, wondering how I had let it all come to this. Claire wanted me to move in with her immediately. She saw Anna's departure as a chance for us to finally be together openly. "This is what we wanted, isn't it?" she said, her eyes alight with determination. No more hiding, no more lies, just us. But the reality was different. The passion that had once felt liberating now felt heavy, tainted by guilt. When I stayed at her place, I found myself restless, distracted, haunted by the image of Anna walking out the door with her suitcase. Claire noticed. "You're not really here," she said one night, pulling away from me in bed. "Even now, even after everything, you're still with her in your head." I denied it, of course, but she was right. My love for Claire had been born in secrecy, fed by the thrill of the forbidden. Now, exposed to daylight, it felt different, less like freedom, more like consequence. And jealousy began to twist her words. Whenever I didn't answer her calls immediately, she'd accuse me of trying to win Anna back. If I seemed distant, she'd lash out, saying I never really intended to choose her. "You only loved me when I was your escape," she spat one evening during a fight. "Now that I'm all you have, you don't want me anymore." I shouted back, told her she was wrong, but deep down, I feared she wasn't. Meanwhile, Anna remained silent. She didn't call, didn't text. I tried reaching out, leaving messages that went unanswered. When I finally saw her again, weeks later, it was at a cafe near her work. She looked thinner, her eyes colder, her smile gone. "I just came to tell you," she said, her voice flat, "that I've filed for separation." The words knocked the air out of me. I tried to speak, to beg for another chance, but she held up her hand. "No, don't. I don't want excuses, or apologies, or promises. I just want this to be over." She stood and left before I could stop her. And just like that, 6 years of marriage were reduced to paperwork and signatures. That night, I drank until the room spun, until Claire found me slumped on the couch and tried to console me. But her touch felt wrong, her words empty. The very person I had destroyed my marriage for now seemed like a stranger. The truth was brutal. I had gambled with love, trying to hold on to 2 women at once. And in the end, I was losing both. The weeks after Anna filed for separation blurred into one long, gray stretch of days. Work became unbearable. I couldn't focus, couldn't pretend to be the man I once was. Colleagues whispered about me. I knew they had pieced things together. Claire was still in the same office, and every glance between us carried the weight of unspoken tension. She wanted us to move forward, to rebuild something from the wreckage. She talked about apartments, about trips, about a future, but I couldn't hear any of it. My heart was still shackled to the past, to the image of Anna's face the night she asked, "Who is she?" to the sound of her suitcase rolling across the floor as she left me behind. Claire grew impatient. "If you can't let go of her, then what are we even doing?" she asked one evening, her voice sharp with frustration. I wanted to tell her she was enough, that she had always been enough. But the words caught in my throat, because deep down, I knew she wasn't. Or maybe she was, and I simply wasn't capable of giving her what she deserved. Our fights became constant, bitter, ugly. Every embrace turned into an argument, every kiss into a test I seemed to fail. The passion that once bound us together now tore us apart. The end came quietly. One night, after another fight that left us both drained, she sat across from me in silence. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "I can't do this anymore," she said. "I thought I wanted all of you, but maybe I only wanted the version of you who belonged to someone else." Her words hit me like a blade, because she was right. We had loved each other in shadows, in stolen hours and whispered secrets. In the light of day, that love withered. She moved out of my life the next morning. No dramatic goodbye, no tears, just a final kiss on the cheek and a door closing behind her. And then there was silence. "No, Anna. No, Claire," Just me in an apartment filled with ghosts. I tried to rebuild. I threw myself into work, into friendships, into meaningless distractions. But nothing filled the void. Nights were the worst. Lying awake in the bed that once held my wife, remembering the warmth of her body, the trust in her eyes before I shattered it. I saw Anna one last time, months later, in a grocery store of all places. She was with a friend, laughing softly at something on her phone. She looked lighter, freer, as though the burden I had been had finally lifted. Our eyes met across the aisle. For a second, the world stopped. I wanted to go to her, to say something, anything, but she only gave me a polite nod, the kind you give a stranger, and turned away. That was when I understood. Love, once broken, doesn't always mend. Sometimes it just becomes another scar, another story you carry with you. Claire tried contacting me once, months later, but by then it was too late. Whatever we had was ashes, burned away by guilt and resentment. I didn't reply. And so here I am, years later, writing this down. Not to justify myself, not to seek forgiveness, but to finally admit the truth. I loved Anna. I loved Claire. But love isn't infinite. It isn't something you can split in half and expect both halves to thrive. By trying to keep both, I lost them all. If there's anything I've learned, it's this: passion is a flame, but trust is the foundation. Without it, everything collapses. And when it collapses, you're left standing in the ruins, holding nothing but memories of the fire that once burned too bright. That is my story, my confession, my punishment, and my scar.